I recently came across the amazing work of Pulley Vector and want to make something in the same style for myself, but with a twist. I want to make mine powered by gravity. Here's the plan. I want to make a little Ferris wheel because we all need some whimsy. I really love the motion in this sculpture, so I want the Ferris wheel to spin around. I also want the spokes of the wheel to light up using the power of gravity. How do you convert gravity into electricity? I'm glad you asked. This is a timer I made in a previous video that uses a falling weight for power. You can check out that video for more details, but at its core, there's a pulley that's spun by a rope with a weight at the end. I should be able to use the same setup to spin a motor that will act as a generator, and by attaching the Ferris wheel to the pulley, I'll get the spinning for free. Now, all I've got to do is figure out how to actually make this in real life. I think the obvious approach to this would be to put the pulley on the shaft, because that's what's meant to spin. And then as that spins, it would generate electricity in the motor, which comes out in these two electrical outputs here. But I want the lights on the actual bit that is spinning, and so I'd have to do some sort of commutator, which is going to get too complicated for my ability. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually flip this around and clamp the shaft so that it's stationary and the motor body is the thing that's actually spinning. And that way the output of the electricity is also spinning, so I don't have to do anything fancy. I can just directly wire into these outputs. I'm going to try and whip up a little test stand that holds onto that and see if we can spin the motor body with the weights on the rope, and we'll see how that goes. That is a nice snug fit, but obviously friction alone isn't going to be enough to hold the shaft in place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and just like file it down until it lines up with the flat spot. And then I'm going to, where did I put it? Hold on, hold. I'm then going to put this little plate of metal over the top to sandwich onto the flat spot. And then hopefully that will be enough to stop this from spinning the shaft while the body spins. Well, it sure ain't pretty, but it does keep the shaft in place while the body spins, and that's all we need it to do. I've now got a very shoddy little LED cluster attached to the motor, and so we'll see what happens. If I can untangle this, and we'll see what happens when it spins. Oh, look at that. We've got power. I think what we should try and do now is put some sort of pulley on the motor body to give it a bit more friction and also to stop the rope from wandering. And thus begun the mad pursuit of trying to make a hole big enough to fit around the body of the motor with none of the right tools. The step bit was taking forever, so I tried using an auger. Even when it didn't split the wood, it made a hole that was too big, so I had to use a smaller bit and then enlarge that hole with a method that I haven't seen before. Look at that. Got to give it a bit of beans to get it in there, and then it's just perfect. I added a groove and cleaned it up, and then realized it was too bulky, but also it was just kind of ugly. So I started again, this time with a much narrower and much nicer piece of wood. With the great pulley fiasco now behind me, I could finally turn my attention to making the actual light. But first, a quick ad to pay the bills. If you need a part but have no way of making it yourself, PCBWay is here to help. They offer a whole bunch of manufacturing services like PCB manufacturing and assembly, CNC machining, sheet metal fabrication, 3D printing, and even injection molding. All you need to do is drop your designs into the website and then choose from a massive range of materials and finishes and get an instant quote for your parts. They even check over your design to make sure you get the best possible result. Before long, your parts will magically arrive at your door. So if you want access to all of these manufacturing capabilities at an affordable price, then check out PCBWay using the link in the description. Thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring this video. Let's get back to it. I got these LED filaments for the light up spokes and some 1.5mm brass rod to make up the structure. All I had to do was bend the brass into an octagon, which was actually pretty challenging. I was following a scale drawing, but I think if I was going to do this again, I'd probably use a jig to help make the bends more repeatable. Mine was turning out pretty lopsided, but honestly, in this day and age, a very handmade look is something I don't really mind. Of course, I don't want this to just be two-dimensional, so I made a second octagon for later. For now, I had to struggle my way through soldering all the LEDs together. I put all the negative ends of the filament on the outer loop and the positive leads joined together on a little ring on the inside. On this small of a scale, it's really hard to heat up the brass enough for the solder to wick without it melting the joints that I'd already done. Shit. But after a lot of persistence, I eventually got there. It might just be the ugliest solder job you've ever seen, but I'm going to test it out now. I think I've finally got it all connected up. I am, though, a little bit worried because a few of these feel as if they're a bit malleable, and they really shouldn't be. I think they should be stiff, so I'm scared that as I was pushing on these while I was soldering them, that I might have snapped some. And I've only got 2 spares, so hopefully they're all okay. Let's give it a test. I should be able to spin this to generate the electricity to make these all light up. So let's... Oh, maybe that's the wrong way. Hang on. Oh, yes. Oh, gee, it's got to be going pretty fast for it to light up. But they all work. I was actually so certain that I'd cooked some of them, but it seems to all work. All right, we're on. Having escaped that ordeal unscathed, I turned my attention to adding the third dimension. I originally planned on having these connecting rods in the corner of the bends, but from my previous experience, I knew that it would be an absolute struggle to do that while keeping the LEDs in place, so I settled for putting them on the straights instead. And on the last one, I managed to put my finger right through one of the filaments, so I subbed out the busted bulb, leaving me with only one spare, so I was going to have to be really careful going forwards. I needed some way of connecting this whole thing to the pulley, so I added some more brass spokes to the backside, and then I could finally hook it up to the motor. You're joking. Oh no. And I've only got one spare. So obviously, I'm gonna have to replace the one that doesn't light up at all. But that's so disappointing. Oh, I think that other one's now fully working. Don't know what that's about. But that's good. We got it all working. So let's give this whole thing a spin. Oh no, it's busted again. Seems to sometimes work and sometimes not. Weird. Let's give it a spin. Oh yeah. I'll get you a close-up. It's pretty good. I think obviously like it's not quite central, but I don't know if I can do much about that now, and I don't think the pulley is actually a circle. As you can see, the motor's mounted in this like horrendously janky little thing here. So I need to make a new backing plate for this, probably out of the same wood as the pulley, because I think it contrasts the brass quite nicely. So I'm going to do that, and then also I need to make some little carriages that'll sit on these outer rails here, so that it's actually a little Ferris wheel, and then yeah, I think that's it. So let's get cracking. The mount is basically just a fancier version of the janky one from the start. The motor shaft slips into the slot and then is held down on its flat spot by a brass plate. I thought the exposed silver screws were kind of ugly though, so I made a little topper that covers them up, and it also acts as the thing that mounts it to the wall. To finish it all off, I made some itty bitty carriages to dangle down and complete the Ferris wheel. I do my best to give myself the chance to try new things without setting the bar too high. Even though most of the joints are wonky and the carriages sometimes get snagged, I am so happy with how this turned out. Obviously, my work is pretty shabby compared to that of Hui Vector, who is clearly a master of their craft, and that is why you should definitely go and check out their channel. It might just inspire you like it did me and get you to try learning something new. Thank you so much to the channel members for all of your support, and thanks to you for watching. Have a lovely day, and I hope to see you again soon.